the Reliance could, if this book is written in 20 years' time, it could be even worse.
Hello, and welcome to the 5th episode of the Audiobook Club. I'm Stephen, your host for this episode, and with me as always are my two companions, Michael and Jonathan. Say hello lads.
Hello.
Hello.
In this episode we will be talking about Reliance, a book by Paul McMurrough, narrated by Jonathan Harden, and without further ado, let me do a quick plot summary. So we're set in Belfast. It's an alternate 2020, I think, where US President Trump has just been shot. This is the big story that everyone's talking about, and it's all over the media. Meanwhile, the scientific community is in a panic about an upcoming astrological event where a solar flare and subsequent CME, which is short for coronal mass ejection, is about to happen. It's so many magnitudes larger than your average that it's going to be a serious, catastrophic and cause catastrophic and likely irrecoverable damage to the world's power grids. We follow several characters from just before the event takes place and for several days afterwards. One is a professor of astrophysics from Queen's University, who's desperately trying and failing to get the word out to the public so that they can prepare. Another is a member of a governmental crisis committee who's likewise struggling to get the word out while waiting on the go-ahead from her superiors. And we also follow a prison guard and see the consequences of a prison without power, and also just an average guy. So why did I pick this book? Well, the main reason was I wanted us to read something different but still have sort of familiar themes to the kinds of books we would normally read and talk about, meaning that it shares some themes with science fiction but not really existing within that genre, if you follow me. It's more like a dramatic thriller sort of book rather than science fiction, but it has, overlap there. I also wanted I thought it'd be nice to shine a light on a somewhat local book and author. As I said, it was set in Belfast, and I think he's also from Belfast. So I mainly wanted to get your opinions on it because I've read it before and I thought you might like it. So what do you think? Spoiler free for now.
Yeah, spoiler free opinion. I did like this book. I find the concept interesting. I think I said to you after, I don't know if I mentioned it on the podcast or it was after, but I have seen a movie with this premise before. I think I looked through and there was a couple of movies with this premise, and I was wondering, I can't really remember which one it was that I seen. I think it was Blackout. I don't think that movie was that good from memory, so I think this handled the idea a lot better than that movie did. It was just as a spoiler free high review. Yeah, I enjoyed the book, definitely. It was interesting.
For me, I thought the concept was good, but unfortunately I was not a big fan of how it played out. I think what I wanted maybe it to be a bit more disastrous is kind of my main criticism, and what I would have thought that was more entertaining. However, the actual idea of like a power failure, which of course could, like what I thought this was an account of what actually would happen, like maybe a true example, whereas I want it to be a bit more exaggerated example of what would happen if this did happen, you know what I mean? But I feel like this is more of a true telling of what actually would happen if this happened in real life. But yeah, it wasn't my favorite book.
Okay, so this is interesting because I think this is the first time that we've actually had a case where somebody liked it and somebody didn't like it.
Yeah, I think so, this is the first. Well, you were slightly lukewarm on Space Odyssey, so it's not our first negative orientated review.
Well, but I suppose that's true, but yeah, it's nice to see a bit of difference. So that's good.
Could I just mention, just for the sake of the listeners, because I don't think we've ever said where we're from. You mentioned that local and that this book was set in Belfast. That we are from Northern Ireland. If people couldn't tell by the accents, we're from Derry. So, and I think we've all been to Belfast a lot. Jonathan studied in Belfast. I lived in Belfast for a year, so we're quite familiar with that area as well. Just thought it was worth mentioning just for context of this book and what that we have kind of a personal tie to the location, the setting in this book.
Yeah. Is that why you didn't like it, Jonathan? Because it all the negatives around Belfast that it was.
I thought initially when I read the description of the book, I thought I was really going to enjoy it, and I really did like the idea that it was set in there, in Belfast and places that we've lived in. However, having lived in Belfast, I know people from other countries seem to be fans of the Northern Ireland accent, but I absolutely hate the Belfast accents. And of course this book had a lot of Belfast accents, but that's just because I've lived there and just used to hearing it, I guess. But that's my one criticism. But I did like the fact that it was set here, and a lot of the things were named were places even in Donegal or Fermanagh, things like that, were places that are in Ireland. It was nice hearing that on an audiobook.
Yeah, I guess I suppose we'll talk about the sort of accents and stuff, obviously, when we get to the parts about the narrator. But I really did like that as well. I thought it added something a lot to the telling of the book. And I thought I thought the accents that he did were spot on.
Yeah, definitely.
Pretty much. I think he is from here as well. But yeah, one gripe just while we're talking about it is that two of the characters are from Donegal, but only one of them has a Donegal accent. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
I don't.
The other one,
I don't really notice
Derek
that.
has. Yeah, Derek and Lisa are both from the same place in Donegal, but only Lisa has the accent.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is kind of weird, but yeah, I suppose that can happen. There's just something I noted while I was reading or listening. Anyway, yeah. So okay, good. I suppose we'll move on to the plot guest reveal. Kind of short and sweet this time around because these were miles away.
Yeah. Who was more miles away?
Neither was even close. I can't even justify that, Michael. Nobody gets a point.
Oh no, Stephen! I think you have to decide, and I would rather you give it to Jonathan than give nobody a point.
Well, see, okay, right. I'm gonna stick with a hard nobody gets any points, right? But if I had to pick, I'm gonna have to say Michael, because while he doesn't have a disability nor any robotics, Derek almost has a RoboCop-like vibe to him, right? He's not even a cop, but sort of. But yeah, I think it's still. Even though it's not even close, it's closer than The Matrix.
I would agree because of Derek, just because he is a warden, and that is
he's a warden, yeah.
Close to a cop.
He's close to a cop, yeah.
Not a RoboCop, but a regular cop.
But I'm gonna say nobody gets any points.
I think it should be a rule that the host has to uncomfortably justify somebody getting a point every episode.
You can't say this now because wasn't there a situation a couple of times where nobody got points?
That's because there was no guessing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you have to award. I feel like you have to
Right, fine. Michael gets the point then.
We have to be uncomfortable in our guesses.
Oh wait. How about this though? If nobody's close, then the person gets the point.
I don't know. I think
again that's unfair, because you could just say no, we're not close, and just get yourself the point.
I think
it's taking this point system so serious.
I think it's funny. You having to decide between two ridiculous ideas. I just like that idea.
Okay, fine then, Michael. You get the point. I'll get one day. But yeah, obviously it was kind of hard one to guess because
without the cover, definitely.
The cover gives so much away
that
I didn't want to reveal it, and the title doesn't give enough.
Yeah.
So yeah. So let's just fire into it then. So obviously, I already mentioned it that we kind of start off with the day of Trump being shot, and that's all everybody's talking about. Media, it's flat out in the media. The shop keeps talking about it, and random people. Everybody's glued to their phones as well, which is sort of the norm these days. We kind of seen it a million times. Something serious is happening or is about to happen, and something not so serious takes center stage in the media. Don't get me wrong, sort of shooting of a world leader is serious, but it's the fact that it eclipses literally everything else is a bit telling of how much the media likes to put shock and awe center stage, rather than putting out what's actually important. But yeah, not only that, but when someone, namely our first character, Professor Martin Monroe, attempts to tell the world about the upcoming disaster, he's sort of mocked and made a laughing stock and a joke of. Partly because in a previous incident, a comment of his was taken out of context and used against him, but also because he's sort of panicked and on edge and defensive to everything somebody says about him. So yeah, but what do you think about the opening to the book? The sort of the whole stuff around the media and everything. Michael, you used to be a journalist. Why do the journalists do that?
Why do they ignore big issues? Or I'm
gonna get to
I'm gonna have to think why. I think in journalism, a lot of the time you're motivated to write what people will read. So a lot of people criticize journalists and say, "Oh, the death of journalism" and stuff, but it is consumer habits that drive journalism and what has shaped journalism into what it's become. So a lot of people say the most evil force in the world is the British media, which I don't think is an unfair thing to say, because with rags like the Daily Mail and stuff, and I think they are horrendous at times, the way they behave and the way the Sun stalks people and stuff like that. It was way too interfering in their personal life. But this reminded me of I don't know if you've seen the Leonardo DiCaprio movie on Netflix, Don't Look Up, where it's a lot about the media ignoring the incoming what was that about again? Was that about climate change?
I was gonna bring that up.
No,
yeah,
it was a metaphor about climate change, wasn't it? But it was about
it was a metaphor about climate change, but there was something.
It was a
in
meteor
the sky.
or something, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was a meteor, yeah. And it was. I was going to bring that up in the comparisons to other media, because obviously, in that they're also trying to get the word out about this disaster thing that's about to happen, and nobody's taking them on. So
So I did think the fact that media ignored Martin, especially given his history, it did make sense to me, and I did think that Martin was an interesting character. His conflict brought on straight away, where he has this worry of being ridiculed. The only thing, one small complaint about this opening too, is the Trump thing. That felt a wee bit weird to me, because there's this thing I've talked it before, saying Brandon Sanderson, fantasy writer, is one of my favorite writers. He does a podcast where he talks about writing a lot, and there's something he calls elephant on a phone booth, I think he calls it, and it's if you imagine a character walking down a street and you're just describing the street. It's David was on his way to the bar and he passed this and that, and then also there was an elephant in the phone booth, and then the story just moves on. And it's wait a minute, what's the elephant in the phone booth about? It's this thing that doesn't kind of feel like it belongs in the story, that kind of sucks you out of the story, because you're wait, what? And it's that's how I feel about this Trump thing. I think it would have been better. I understand the function that it plays in the story to distract people, but I think it would have been better taking the approach of Don't Look Up, where people just don't ignore it because of their own ignorance. Because I think that that has a more thematic punch, especially with what we endured with COVID and everything. I think that could have linked into that a bit more.
Do you think it's because it's like an actual president that existed? You know, if it was like, say, we're Don't Look Up, where it's just it's a president, but they just give it a completely different name.
Yeah,
and
if it had
do you think that would have helped?
Yeah, I think so, definitely, Stephen. I think if it had have just said the president was killed, that would have worked for me. I think just it being Trump, it felt a wee bit weird, but it's not a massive part of this book, so it didn't ruin the end, the beginning or anything. It was just one little niggle.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it does sort of date the book as well, because obviously
it definitely does. Yeah,
Trump's not president anymore.
Yeah, I thought it was quite a realistic approach. I think I mentioned before, like this book does take a very realistic view of what I think would happen anyway. I think it's kind of, like you even mentioned there, that film Don't Look Up, it just kind of plays on the fact that, people are distracted by things and they don't really care about what's actually important anymore. Like for example, in this book, that the Trump getting shot is more important than potentially an end to, civilization, or the normal civilization that we're used to. Which obviously affects everyone in the whole world. But yeah, I thought it kind of funny. It's kind of like that humor that Netflix film Don't Look Up has as well. How it's trying to be funny by just saying, people don't care, but there is like, you as the reader or the listener, the impending doom's coming. Like, you know it to be true. And it's kind of funny, to watch people not care and be like, oh, you're going to get it eventually. You're going to be severely surprised whenever this actually happens. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen the scene in the book where the radio presenter that interviewed Martin, he gets murdered or something.
A bit of a schadenfreude.
Would have been funny. Okay, yeah, so jumping on a little bit then. So after that, the next sort of major event is the Governmental Disaster Committee. I can't remember its actual title. I think they call it a few different things, but basically this group of people that work for the government in different sectors, like the army and I can't remember any of the other ones, but basically all these government people meet up to decide, what to do about the upcoming disaster. They don't think it's a disaster, but they know it's going to have some sort of impact, so they need to decide what they're going to do to help the public. And I found this part really frustrating because it just seems so typical that they just all sit around not doing anything, while the leader guy kind of sits on the phone talking to his superiors, and we have the one character, Lisa, who actually tries to sort everything out. Tries to find out what might happen, and tries to get Martin to come in because she's heard him on the radio to come in and present to them what's about to happen, what's going to be the impact, what can they do to sort of lessen the blow and help the people. And she sort of struggles to even get a colleague to give her a phone number for this guy, because the colleague is aware that this guy's a bit of a known madman or a conspiracy nut. So she kind of struggles to get him to come in, and eventually with some effort she manages to, and once he presents it to what's about to happen, he's again met with everybody kind of this sort of disbelief, and everybody thinks he's mad, and that it's only going to be a short-term problem while the power company sort it all out. So were you guys frustrated by this, or was it just me? Or what do you think about these government people not just sitting around not doing anything, really, or waiting to hear from their superiors what they're allowed to do?
Yeah, I think it definitely was frustrating. We're currently in a political situation in Northern Ireland where we don't have a government right now, so that kind of government apathy and people not taking action really strikes home. And I'm nearly sure, and I'm gonna make like so many parallels to COVID, I feel, but I'm nearly sure these committees were happening during the pandemic as well, and there was probably the same dismissiveness in the beginning. So I do think it was a realistic response to it. I found it a bit maybe a bit, this part dragged on a bit for me.
Yeah.
But I think the intention, I think anyway, of the offer was for it to be frustrating, and it definitely achieved that.
Yeah, I think you're right to draw parallels to COVID, obviously, because it was written during the pandemic. So
yeah,
and it's obviously set at the same sort of time. So there's that direct parallel. That's I mentioned before. It's like an alternate 2020 where there's a different disaster that's about to happen. So, I think you're absolutely right to make that.
It's very relevant to a lot of things, isn't it? That's are happening, because I think even if was it today, North Carolina have had power outages because of shooting that's happened in one of their stations. And I remember reading in the past about how sensitive the American power grid is. So it is a very valid fear too.
And I think now that you've mentioned that, I think I was reading around the time this probably was written that this was a fear that this was going to happen. That there was this sort of CME that was about to. It was so big that
Right. Oh, right. The exact thing that.
I don't know if it was exactly, but there's something in the back of my mind that says I remember reading about this. But yeah.
Well, I think I kind of mentioned before that I although it is, I guess, a frustrating kind of setup. I did find it kind of funny. I like kind of situations where people are not taking things seriously or things like that, and then they obviously they get what's coming to them, and I think the fact too that there, I guess that is a common situation. There is always this. I guess it's like the boy who cried wolf kind of situation that you have someone that's done something stupid or maybe has complained too much in the past about something, like what's his name, Andrew Martin.
No, that's our Andrew Martin's from our last book.
Oh yeah, that's right.
This guy's Martin Monroe, I think his name is.
Martin Monroe. Yeah, I think he, because he was disgraced or whatever for the whole previous thing that it was blown up in the media. People aren't listening to him, and I just think it's funny whenever people don't, and it always reminds me in like real life if someone came and they were like absolutely adamant, like this is going to happen, you need to be worried about this. Would you actually listen? Would you be like? Would you take inspiration from like books like this? And you're like, maybe this guy's talking sense, or would you as well be like everyone else and not think that this is going to happen because this is a crazy person? Because I guess a lot of how we view people is made up by the media these days. Like,
interested. But yeah, frustrating part of the book, and I agree with you, Michael. I think it went on too long as well, but it is what it is.
Yeah, there was a bit too many committee meetings. I think just it. Yeah, I think it could have been cut down a bit.
Those sort of meetings are boring by their nature, so it's and also
especially because
go on.
I was going to say just especially because this book is a thriller as well, so I think pace is extra important in a book like this because it is so breakneck when everything does break out.
Were you able to draw any parallels with that one character who I can't remember her name either, but she's like Lisa's colleague who's like the office bitch. I was like, so accurate. There's always one.
Yeah, she's the one who is very, very dismissive of Martin.
She's not only dismissive of Martin, but she just doesn't want to help because of reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to jump forward a bit here. So the event has sort of happened. The power grids have failed, or we don't actually find out what really happened to them, but they're damaged anyway, seemingly beyond repair. And at this point, Simon, he's a sort of regular guy character, who's friends with I need to call him Andrew Martin there. He's friends with Martin, and who was warned to prepare and everything. He's just woken up and discovers that one of his neighbours is trapped in a lift, has been trapped in the lift all night with her grandmother, who's seemingly unconscious, who's been unconscious for hours, and we sort of follow him and a bunch of the other neighbours trying to rescue them without electricity, which, if you don't know, if the power goes out and a lift gets trapped, it's really difficult to get someone out of it. Mm-hmm. So what did you think about this part of the book? I really liked it because it kind of shows that people are willing to go out of their way to help each other. Obviously, this is a life-threatening situation, but it's just nice to see that in this sort of book where people are willing to help, where in these sort of scenarios, you always see everybody, every man for himself sort of thing. I suppose it is still sort of early days where it has just happened, and that sort of fear hasn't gripped people yet. But yeah, another thing that I sort of wanted to highlight was a little nod to something you said in the last episode, Jonathan, which was technology won't save mankind, but humans will, and I think that's a nice wee link to put on there.
Yeah.
Because technology's failed here, but people come together and they help each other out. Yeah. So, what did you think about this part of the book?
Yeah, I thought this was really effective. It was a great idea for showing the immediate fallout. Anyway, it was like the focus of somebody being stuck in an elevator is a good idea, and it's a terrifying thought that you could be in that situation. It's kind of the perfect. It's a perfect metaphor for our reliance on technology, being inside this elevator, because we are completely at technology's mercy in that moment. So yeah, I thought it was a really effective scene, especially, as you said, to exhibit the themes of people helping each other in a disaster. I've heard people talking about this. I think it was a TED talk I listened to one time where they said humans are very likely to help each other and band together more and disasters, but obviously the panic also can be a factor, as we saw ourselves during the pandemic, which I think definitely informed this book a lot. The more that I talk about it, the more I realise that.
Yeah,
I think I agree, of course, with what Michael said. And they add to this is this is the first kind of death that we come across in the book, and so it's kind of when I think this is the first point. I think isn't it Simon that's one of the main characters there at this situation, and Derek, doesn't he come eventually, or Derek come later, I guess. Simon tells Derek about it later, but this is the first kind of time that you realise what kind of problems this is actually going to be life or death situation if the power goes out, because I think everyone maybe jumps to thinking about like life support machines and things like that, but even just like the basic services of being able to phone an ambulance and get an ambulance to you, that's not going to work as you want it to. And like the stress on emergency services would just be incredible. So I think this is the first kind of indication we have of what kind of the disaster is to come in terms of the outbreak.
It's great that building the tension, because, as you said, it's to show you what is to come. And I think there's a part in this section of the book where one of the characters asks about everything that runs off electricity, like taps and toilets, and it's kind of that's a great tension builder as well.
The water thing. What was it? He says it's all controlled by electricity, by a boiler in the attic or something.
The pumps, it's like gas is
pumps,
pumped.
That's what it is, yeah. Pumps, yeah. So that was something I was like, oh really? I that's something I never would have thought about. And even something simple as the lift. Obviously, if there's no power, it's not going to work. But it doesn't really come into your head until you're kind of faced with that scenario. So yeah, it was definitely a tension building moment. And the fact that they all live in this sort of apartment complex, and they have a electricity controlled front gate, and they can't get that open either to leave or go anywhere, or even get the emergency services in to help this person, or even phone them. to come out, from the fire brigade to come out and help them out is a bit. It's actually really worrying, and I found myself at this part of the book sort of a bit of fear creeping in.
Yeah, because it makes you think of, because a gate, an electric gate, it's such a needless thing to have technology be a part of, but it has been introduced more with the likes of smart fridges and things like that. So the Reliance could, if this book is written in 20 years time, it could be even worse.
Yeah. So yeah, it's after this part in the book, I started thinking to myself wherever I went, if the power went out, this thing wouldn't work, or we couldn't do that. So it was a really key part of the book for me. So yeah, jumping on a bit again. Once we sort of meet Derek and find out who he is. He appears a few times in the Simon chapters. I think they share a local shop or something. But he's kind of randomly there in the background. But he has just come off paternity leave, or is about to come off paternity leave as the blackouts hit. And there's some worries there from him that his wife and newborn child aren't going to have the resources that they'll need, and he's trying to figure all that out before he goes back to work, because he is like a warden or a head prison guard in a prison. So he stays there during his shift and everything. He returns to the prison, and there's already no power for a couple of days, which already is a sort of terrifying concept, because if you have a prison without electricity, and we already know that a lot of stuff runs on it, what are they going to do? Well, they're probably going to riot or escape or whatever, what have you. So we find that the prisoners have all been locked in their cells for safety reasons, and they're about to riot. And over the course of a couple of days, Derek realizes that he's going to have to, him and all the guards are going to have to abandon the prison and lock the prisoners inside until the army can come over to take over. Which that's just terrifying. this whole part of the book, yeah. And we also learn that the prison's sort of split in half, with the two paramilitaries. So it's even worse again, because the prisoners are probably going to start killing each other and everything. So yeah, what did you think about this section of the book? Again, it's not something that would immediately come to mind if you think about, blackouts, where prisons having no power and escapes and everything like that. Obviously, you're going to have like criminals running around, which you don't want. So
yeah, I thought this was the strongest portion of the book. I thought these Derek chapters were really, really good. The moral conflict between on what to do with the prisoners, what is right to do, was really interesting to see him grapple with that. And it is a terrifying realization, because like you were saying, Stephen, it's not something I would have immediately thought of. I wouldn't have gave what's going to happen to prisons wouldn't be my first thought in a blackout, but it's really, really interesting. It nearly made me wish that I had read this part in isolation as like a short story, where it just opened with Derek and you don't know why the power is out. That would have added to a lot of tension and mystery, but it's a really good portion of the book in my opinion. It's really well done, and I think it's the part I enjoyed the most in the book.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that too. Maybe not specifically this sort of these couple of chapters where he's in the prison, but just all the Derek parts, I think, combined it's my favorite sort of plot line. I
absolutely agree with Michael. I think that this part was probably the only real part of the book that I really enjoyed, and actually I think, Michael, you almost kind of said exactly what I was going to say, what I was thinking, and that I think that the book, what would have been more interesting for me is if the book was around the prison, as opposed to people trying to. I think the book kind of focuses on people trying to just deal with the situation. I actually would think it would be a bit better if it started with Derek being in the prison and the power going out and them not really knowing what's going on, and then the story's actually centered around the prison and what goes on inside, and like them trying to contain the prisoners, and then all hell breaking loose. I actually think that would have been a more interesting kind of story. That's what I was more hoping for in terms of this book, was more like kind of riot and stuff, things like that. But I think maybe human nature is just too good. I maybe want they expect the worst in people, as opposed to people helping each other. But I think that's just from an entertainment perspective of chaos. Just appeals more to me. But that's kind of my thoughts.
I mean, that's what stories are about. Conflict is at the heart of stories. Conflict is interesting, so I can definitely see your point there.
I've got good news for you, Jonathan, if that's what you were looking for.
Go for it.
There's a novelette, or like a shorter version story that the author has put out. It's called Dr. Death, and I believe it's set in the prison with one of the characters that we meet. I don't remember his name, but he is a doctor, and I think he does have that.
Brian or something, was it?
Brian. Yeah. So I believe it centers around him and one of the other prisoners. I haven't read it though, but if that's what you're looking for, it is out there.
Nice.
I definitely felt like the author had a good grasp on what this prison is like, and because this is based on a real prison, and it made me wonder: does he have contacts, or did he speak to somebody and McGabbery to get some notes for this book, or something, because it does feel very well researched, this part, which I think gives it a really good sense of place.
Possibly, yeah. Jumping ahead a bit further, to finish off there, so Derek and the other guards have abandoned the prison, and Derek has taken basically all the weapons that they have, for the guards. He's taken them with him, but so that the prisoners obviously don't have any weapons to kill people or kill each other. But also that leaves him in a situation where he's running around with a cache of weapons, and he needs to get rid of them. So he tries a few times to take them to police stations and stuff, and finds that they're not open. And I believe at one point he even comes across two police officers, or maybe they're people from the army. I can't really remember. But he tries to hand them in, and they basically tell him no, he's going to have to wait till they sort out the panic and everything. He's going to have to hold on to them, which is a bit mad. But that leaves him in a situation where he basically can't go forward with his plans, which are to take his family south to Donegal for this sort of party that's going on, or that was supposed to happen, but basically to get refuge from the blackouts. And he doesn't want to cross the border with a bunch of weapons for obvious reasons. So at this point, Derek and Simon's story kind of overlap, and they visit that shop I mentioned before and discover that the shopkeeper has been murdered. We previously met this owner a couple of times in Simon's POVs, where we learned that he's having trouble with thieves, and he's sort of that sort of old guy who doesn't take any crap, and if you try and mess him about, they will sort of hit you a slap, which is sort of foreshadowing that there's going to be something. I sort of knew there was an earlier chapter where these two guys come in and try and basically take stuff without paying, because there's a blackout and they can't get any money out of the bank machines to pay him, and he sort of tells them no, and it's about to come to blows and everything. So I sort of knew at that point that he was gonna get killed. But anyway, we find out that this has happened. So some looter or whatever has killed him, and Simon and Derek come across it separately. But then basically it leads to a situation where Simon and Derek sort of not necessarily team up, but they basically group up, and they're staying in Simon's apartment because he has supplies, and they sort of needed supplies for the baby and whatever. So it sort of made sense. But what did you think about this? I thought it was kind of weird when they just randomly grouped up, but fair enough, it's a blackout, but he's still a stranger, and some guy just got murdered, so it was a bit sus for me.
Yeah, I thought the money storyline with the shopkeeper was quite interesting. It was a it was a good point of view to tell a blackout story from, because you can imagine, especially if you're in a local run shop where your livelihood is based off your inventory. Because if this was like a chain shop, it's kind of like, who cares, just take anything you want. But if this was his own corner shop, it's an interesting point of view to tell it from. And I can see where all parties are coming from. The people who want to take things and him for wanting to defend things. But yeah, I thought that the team up did seem a wee bit strange. But that was kind of, I think, where they wanted the story to go, with everybody meeting up eventually. But yeah, it felt a bit forced here. I would agree with you there.
Another point to sort of bring up is the sort of Lisa Simon thing that was sort of forced in there too, because obviously we find out that Simon and Derek both know Lisa. I can't remember exactly how that happened, but anyway, they both know her, and that's sort of the catalyst for them. Like, you know, they're gonna basically travel to Donegal to her parents' house for this like party that was supposed to happen. And there's some for some reason there's like there's a sort of almost love situation between Simon and Lisa, even though they've only met once. I thought that was a bit forced as well, but yeah, that just came into my head there.
Yeah, I prefer in these kind of books where the characters who are all meeting up and coalescing into a group don't know each other. I find that a lot more interesting, like with like a show like Walking Dead, where there's a family there and there's a best friend, but apart from that, nobody really knows each other. It's this random group of people who've all came together. I find that a bit more interesting than friends meeting up during this, thing.
Yeah, so the main thing I would say is the circumstances for them all grouping up is a bit dubious. They all somehow through various sequences meet up with end up knowing each other. It was a bit forced, but yeah, I still think it was fine. It didn't detract from my enjoyment of the book or anything. But Johnny, what did you think about that whole thing?
Yeah, I thought that from my perspective it was actually alright. I think that they wanted these people to be connected. They connect the story. I don't really seem like the Harry Potter ones that are just where it happens over and over again and it's extremely noticeable. I didn't really even think about this portion, so it obviously was quite I didn't really notice it at all, so it didn't bother me at all. So no, I think it was done well how Simon and Derek they kind of just knew all of each other. It's kind of similar to a situation that you might have where there's probably people that goes to your local shop and you've seen them before. So if a situation a bad situation happened, you would probably feel comfortable talking to them because you feel like you know them, but you don't really know them because you've never spoke to them. So it's kind of like that situation. And yeah, then I think the circle of the relationships then is Derek's best friend Ray is then Lisa's brother, who's then Lisa's obviously working. Yeah, Lisa's working with Martin, who then is Simon's friend. So it's like a circled relationship. But I mean, that only needed two connections because Derek, Lisa, and Ray they knew each other before, and Simon and Martin knew each other before. So really, it only needed two connections. So yeah, I don't think there was anything wrong with it.
Good points, well made. What I should mention as well is the reason that Derek and his family aren't going to their own home, or one of the reasons is that there was a run-in with Derek and two suspicious characters claiming to be community support people who were going door to door, sort of checking in on the elderly and making sure everybody is okay during this sort of blackout. And basically these are two unlikely support workers, let's say. They seem a bit rough and everything, and Derek notices one of them has tattoos similar to those that he would see in the prison, which makes him suspicious. But also when they're leaving, one of them names him by name, which makes him think that he's being watched by the prisoners. So now that he's locked the prisoners up, he doesn't want to go back in case that they break out and come and get him, essentially, because there was threats before. But yeah, I thought I would just add that in. But yeah, what did you think about the two support workers, inverted commas? I really liked the accents that the particular like sort of way they were speaking. I thought was amazing.
Yeah, the accents, yeah, the performance, the audio performance was spot on. I thought the dialogue, it was like it was meant to dance this kind of between a threat and subtext and everything. It did it really well. I thought it was really good scene. As I said, I think the Derek chapters are the strongest in this book.
I think that these men, these are like your boy. I think he's called, is it Baker or something like that? He's like one of the head of the paramilitary groups within the prison or something like that. And these are like his men. But like Derek has a similar encounter with your man Baker himself in the prison, where he's kind of like, is your family alright, as in things like that. You've just had a new baby and all. It's very like it's hinting. He's obviously threatening him, but without actually saying it. It's like the exact same kind of situation. And yeah, I like situations like that. I think the tension is quite good. Yeah, it's yeah, especially for him, like, who's Derek's obviously in a position of power, but he's not supposed to. He can't lose his temper easily, but you just know he's that kind of person that, if he went off in one, he would, smash some heads. Like, so yeah, it's funny too, trying watching him keep composed during these situations.
Yeah, because at any moment I was waiting for it just to kick off in multiple Derek scenes. But yeah, just to highlight again, the accents, this particular way of speaking that the narrator used for the two guys, I thought was spot on. Like, I don't know how to describe it other than like a sort of loudy, chavvy Belfast accent. Here, mate. Sorta.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I like, as I said, I hate the accent, and actually the I think worse is, the heroin addicts that's come on date later. I think theirs is even worse, and like it's so accurate. Like there are people like I've met in nights out that they just talk like that, like, and you just know that they look at them, they're dangerous. Like, it's just not the.
I brought up last episode about the J.K. Rowling thing with teenagers, where a lot of people don't like the fifth book, the characters in that, because they're very accurate to how teenagers act. So it's like she got it so right that it's annoying. I would nearly say the same thing about these Absolutely. Belfast accents.
Yeah,
they're so right that it's annoying.
By the way,
sometimes.
Just a side note, I can't believe that you when you said that, where people don't like the fifth book. I love the fifth book. Just a side note.
I love the fifth book too, but yeah, a lot of people complain about like the teenage angst in it and stuff. But it is mostly because she gets teenagers right that they fall out over everything and they huff over everything. And
so now we have a situation where Simon and Derek and his family are all kind of waiting out the blackout, or waiting to leave basically to go to Donegal, and Simon's waiting for Martin to turn up so they can go to Fermanagh to Martin's family's house. But basically what happens is Martin and Lisa are kind of running around all these radio stations trying to kind of get the word out. And I'm not actually sure what their end goal was, because like the government doesn't seem to be planning to do anything, and it's just going to spread panic. So I wasn't actually sure what they were trying to do there, but yeah, they are running around these radio stations, because even though we've lost power, the radio stations still function because they have like backup generators. I think that's important to mention as well, and people can like use their car radios and stuff, because obviously it's not connected to like the grid or anything. So they're running around this and basically getting nowhere, and they part ways, and Martin goes to meet up with Simon, and trying to get into Simon's apartment complex with past that gate isn't going so well. And yeah, these drug addicts that Michael mentioned sort of approach Martin and kind of see that he's got all these supplies that he's prepping before, and they basically ends up killing him and taking his car and everything. So that sort of leads Simon down a sort of grief spiral, and Derek and his missus are trying to calm him down and everything, and they basically decide to take him with them to Donegal. And then meanwhile, Lisa she's also sort of parted ways, and I think she's making her way there to Donegal as well. And I can't remember exactly why, but she basically comes upon this prison and discovers.
I think she's going because Ray's her brother. He works there. I think she's going to see has he left.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, so she's going to check in on her brother and discovers that the place is abandoned, and finds 3 prisoners, sort of skulking around the entrance, as it were. And they sort of ask her for a lift into town, and they attack her basically, and she suffers a head wound and crashes a car. She gets taken in by this kindly old man, and quickly the 3 prisoners kind of follow where she went and track her down, because the car's ruined outside this guy's house, and they try and break into, like, I'm not sure why they were they were trying to get his car, weren't they? They were trying to get the old man's car to do whatever they were going to do. And meanwhile, again, Simon and Derek are starting to make their way to Donegal. Simon's kind of cheered up a wee bit somehow, but he's still a bit sad. It was kind of a quick turnaround, I thought, but yeah. And they basically happen upon this scene where the prisoners are attacking Lisa and the old man and save the day, basically. And we find out that one of them is this Baker character that was like head of one of the paramilitary groups that we mentioned before. So Derek gets his vengeance there, but basically then the all the main characters, besides Martin, because he's dead, travel to Donegal, and that's they end up in Lisa's parents' house, and that's where the book ends. So what did you think about this ending? Section of the book where we've got Martin's death, we've got the attack on Lisa, we've got the Derek and them deciding to take the guns anyway and go to Donegal. Like, what were your thoughts on the end?
I thought the book here, it really lived up to its genre being a thriller. It really ramped things up, and it made all the storylines kind of feel heightened here, which was really good thing to do in the last act of the book. I thought Martin's death was effective. I thought the attics, it was a terrifying scene, because I was thinking, I don't know what I would do here. And I thought it was emotionally impactful. For the Lisa storyline as well, that was interesting. I think it was like a necessary thing to show some of the fallout of what happens with the prison. So I think it felt slightly weird that it was her that it happened to, but yeah, I thought it was well done as well. I thought this whole section of the book was really well done, but then I think the actual ending itself felt very abrupt to me.
Yeah.
It like they go to Donegal. It's kind of like, if I was like to draw a comparison of a popular movie, if 28 Days Later, where they meet the military, it's like if they ended that movie there. That's how it kind of felt to me. It felt a bit like it was missing another act, maybe. If you haven't seen that movie, there is an entire storyline after they get to the military base where there's more twists and turns to come after that. But it felt like this book was 3/4 of a book nearly, or if it was like a Netflix series or something, this would have been like episode 1 to 5, but there's still 5 more episodes to go.
Yeah.
That's kind of the way I feel about it. So it was a bit abrupt to me, and I know there's another book to this series, so maybe that does tie up things more. But just as this isolated experience, I would have preferred this to go on a few more hours and maybe have a few more turns, a few more plot points.
Yeah, 100%. Like, but no, one thing I really want to get your opinion on is the radio station thing. Why do you think they were? What was the goal there?
I'm not really sure, to be honest, either, Stephen. I think it was just to get the truth out there, really, and it was just because they were denied a means of contact. But as you brought up, that would probably just create more panic. So I don't know if it would be the wisest choice, because, again, to draw parallels with the pandemic, we know that the pandemic that people panic irrationally. We remember what happened with toilet paper,
Yeah.
at the start of the COVID outbreak. So it probably would have caused more panic if they got the word out. So I'm not really sure what the idea was.
Yeah, because they were so late too. Like, you had Lisa and Martin trying to get it going before the event happened, but then they were shut down. So if it got if it would happen beforehand, it probably would have done some. But yeah,
maybe it was just to, I don't know, try and establish some kind of community or something, and make maybe bring people together, let them know that it's going to be okay, or something like that.
Yeah, maybe, get really sort of reassurance. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that the ending, it was kind of like the prison stuff for me as well. I felt the book did pick up a bit more here, so I did enjoy this part a bit better than most of the book. I think the firstly, starting with the Martin's death, I think it was quite unexpected, to be fair, but yeah, I did think it was a good addition to the story. One thing I wanted to bring up was, I think whenever he's dying and Simon's putting pressure on his wounds and talking to him, it's kind of like here's Martin, here's Martin, and then Simon is the only person that's ever cared about him, but not in the way that Martin wanted. And I was like, obviously that's kind of an indication that Martin is in love with Simon. And I was like, it was a bit random putting that on there, but then when I thought about it, it kind of like adds to the tragicness of the situation, but it also adds to the fact that at least he's dying with the only person that's he's ever cared about, or has ever cared about him, with him when his final moments. So it's kind of bittersweet as well. But I thought it was a bit random when he first said that. I was kind of like, what?
that is a good point, and I forgot all about that.
I forgot about that too.
It does seem like it was shoehorned in. You know,
Yeah.
that Martin does love Simon in more than a platonic way.
Yeah, because it doesn't really feel foreshadowed that much. It doesn't.
So you do get the opinion that Martin loves him, right? But it seems that the great love that he has for him is because of he's like a lonely guy, and Simon's like a nice friend that he has.
Yeah.
And as Johnny said, he's the only person that properly cares about him, really.
Yeah.
So, but then to find out that he properly loves him, then it's a bit, I don't know.
I wish either had been a bit more foreshadowing, a bit more clues to that. It would have felt a bit, I think, more satisfying as a reveal. It would have been like, oh, of course he's in love with him. But I think the lack of foreshadowing made it feel a wee bit jarring. Or maybe it was foreshadowed and I didn't pick up on it, but I didn't feel it was anyway.
Well, I've read it twice and I don't think it is foreshadowed.
Yeah.
But maybe.
Then going on from that, I think, I did enjoy the part where Lisa pulls up at the prison and the three prisoners there. It's like one of those scenes that the author's able to create the tension, even though you as the reader, that these are, what's going on. She doesn't, but these are three bad men and what's about to happen. And then as she's starting to get more and more of a sense of she's in this dangerous situation, you're just kind of like, hurry up and run, and it kind of has that sense of tension. So I did enjoy that chapter. And then I think she goes, crashes the car, and then there's the whole scrap in the house. My favorite part about that was that Derek kind of got his revenge. I know it's Simon that actually kind of saves the day at the very end, but Derek eventually gets his kind of revenge on this guy for. I'm sure he's probably said more things in the past as well, but it was kind of a satisfying part. But I agree with Michael too. It kind of just then ends with them going to the house. I wasn't maybe satisfied with the ending too much. It just kind of faded out. For me, it wasn't really.
It felt like a good like in a good episode cliffhanger more than a book ending, really. Yeah.
No, I would agree with that. To be fair, I did like the book, but I did think that was the ending was really weak. They just turn up at her parents' house and that's it.
Yeah, and I get it that he has he's trying to set up a series, but I think we have to review this book as it is.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that should be the case for all the stories where you take them in isolation.
Yeah, because you look at we've reviewed other series books. You look at Space Odyssey and Harry Potter. they are first books in a series, but they still tell a whole isolated story within the book. There is an ending. Yeah. There's a satisfying resolution and everything.
So let's move on to star rating. So Johnny, let's get yours out of the way, because I know where it's going to go. What rating would you give this? Just for the story, or maybe actually do both. Yeah, story and the narration.
So the story, as I said, I wasn't a big fan. There was bits and pieces here and there that I enjoyed, mostly the high tension and conflict scenes. The underlying idea of the power going out, I thought was good, and there is definitely a good story, and I think a really good story could be produced from that topic. But I'd like, if you're saying that the author himself is building up this multiple stories, I'd like to see where it goes, I guess. Narration wise, again, as I said, I'm not a big fan of the accents, but I do think that they were done very well. And like Michael said, I think because they were done that well, that's why they annoyed me so much. So that does pull it up a wee bit, but overall, I'm going to give it a 2.5.
Ooh, that's our lowest, I think.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, so I thought the book started pretty strongly. I thought the middle was really, really strong. It really became a thriller there. I think the way it amped up tension, the handling of tension was really well done. I think all the characters were compelling. I think the ending was a bit abrupt, but it was I think a good exploration of the concept. I probably would have preferred this to be a bit more epic, and I feel like this concept probably could have easily been a 16 to 17 hour book, so it felt a bit condensed. But I thought it was I thought it was a really good book, and I would be interested to check out the rest of the series. I would give it a recommend. As for the narration, it's pretty much the same as Jonathan, and the Belfast accents and stuff did annoy me, but they were really well done. I think that is I think that's a thing that is going to be exclusive to us. I think listeners who are from different countries aren't going to have an issue with it. I think it's because it's so close to home to us, it kind of is irritating. So I don't want to mark down the narrator at all because of that. He was an excellent voice actor, gave an excellent performance. So I'm going to give this a pretty solid score, I think, and I'm going to give it a 4.
Nice. Yeah, I think I would echo a lot of things you said. It's I think the start was kind of weak. I can't remember if you said that or not. But yeah, I think the start was a bit weaker than it could have been. The middle, it was starting to pick up a lot, and then towards the end, I was really gripped. But yeah, at the very end, it was very, very, very abrupt. It's kind of the main problems I would have with it. The story itself, I think it's a really nice concept, a really, really interesting concept, and I like the way that the author went with it. Where it's, as we talked about, more realistic rather than kind of a true thriller in a sense, like a sort of movie thriller where it's all stuff's blowing up and stuff. It's all crazy, but I really liked it, and I think, and the narration I thought was top notch. But again, it is because of it's a sort of more local book that it is so good, but that doesn't mean it wasn't a good performance. So like you said, Michael, so I'm going to give it a 4 as well. Comparisons to other media. So we've kind of touched on this a couple of times already. So stuff like anything really where the power goes out, or anything where any sort of dystopian
where people
like story,
where people are taken back to their basics, kind of.
Yeah, back to basics. So like stuff like Michael mentioned, The Walking Dead, like stuff like Mad Max, I think comes into that. That's like a world without electricity.
Oh, that is one of the harshest dystopia, that you really don't want to live in the Mad Max world.
I don't want to live without electric either, to be honest with you.
There is a worse dystopia I know than Mad Max, and I was thinking about recommending it, but I don't. It's a horrible place to live. Like,
I look forward to that recommendation. So stuff like The Walking Dead, any zombie movie or show or story, I think also kind of comes into it again because of that sort of back to basics outlook. And yeah, yeah, and the sort of panic surrounding it. Obviously, we mentioned Don't Look Up. I think there's a big parallel there.
Definitely,
with trying to get messages out in the media, not listening, and just thinking everything's a big joke and what have you. So, yeah. Do you guys have any comparisons?
No, Don't Look Up is probably the biggest one I would say this reminded me of, and I mentioned that this has been done in other books and movies before. I watched one of the movies, but I can't remember much about it, and I do, just from what I can remember, I do think this book handled it a lot better. I think I didn't mention it there in my roundup. I meant to mention it, but it is really, really well researched. At least it feels well researched how this would affect everything. So so I think that it was that movie was kind of more just an action. It wasn't as much as a serious take as this was.
For me, I think maybe just a comparison to essentially the COVID-19 pandemic. I know the power didn't go out or nothing, but it's kind of a situation where human life and activity was changed in a dramatic way. Our routines were completely changed, things like that, and it all had a massive effect on everyone. And I think this it kind of just has that same kind of feeling. It's like it's not the end of the world, but it's like things are just like not you're not comfortable with the way things are now, and it's hard to get used to that way of living, and I think that's my kind of biggest comparison.
Didn't somebody even say in the book, "This is the new normal" or something like that?
Yeah.
Just hearing that phrase made my skin crawl. I was like, it just reminded me of COVID times. Like it.
I must have missed that. Like I was so numb to it now.
I think the phrase was used at some point. Yeah.
Good. No, I think you have to draw parallels to obviously the pandemic, because it's clearly not based on it, but it clearly draws a lot from it. Obviously, being written around the same time.
Yeah.
So yeah. Good. So trivia section. I think we're going to be pretty light on the trivia because it's only a couple of years old book as well, and there's not really a lot of publicity surrounding it or anything.
Yeah, it's quite an obscure book.
One key bit of trivia. Sorry, Michael.
Oh no, I was just saying. Yeah, it's quite an obscure book.
Yeah, it's a bit of an obscure one again. It's a theme that I'm trying to drive home with my picks, but the key bit of trivia that I wanted to bring up was that the author is actually an acquaintance of mine. I know him personally. He used to be my manager in a company that I used to work for. So we would go out and nights out and stuff, and he was a good man to work for. So I thought I'd give him a wee plug. Actually, now that the more I think about it, so good bit of trivia to bring up was that. Let me just get it up here. So did you know, or did you do any like reading up about him or anything? But he was actually he could barely read until he was about 15. I
did see that, yeah, on his Goodreads page.
Yeah, so he could barely read until he was about 15, and then he got introduced to like computing and programming and stuff and at school, and that sort of helped him make sense of sort of letter.
Yeah,
I think the term he uses is letter spaghetti. Pages of textbooks. So after that, he got a degree in computer science, and he went on to have a career there, and that's where I met him. So yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, it's the first time where we've known the author personally, so I thought I would bring that up.
And unfortunately, we couldn't get him onto the podcast.
Couldn't get him on. He's too busy writing that.
Dystopian fiction
book. Yeah, I should have asked him, but it's been so long since I've spoken to him that I thought it would have been kind of weird.
I don't think I could have given an honest review if we had him on. I would have just had to give him five stars out of awkwardness.
That's the other point.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's us finished with the book. Then we'll move on to the sort of end section here now. So, what else are you guys consuming at the minute? For me, finished Andor. I can't remember if that was in the last episode or not, but it was absolutely amazing ending. What else? I finally started watching House of the Dragon. I'm absolutely gripped by it. Yeah, I'm about 5 episodes in, hoping to finish it. The rest maybe tomorrow. We'll see. And then games wise, the new World of Warcraft expansion just came out, so that's taking up a lot of my time. So, what about you guys, Johnny? You consuming anything?
Yeah, I'm also watching House of Dragon. I've been watching it for the past month now. I finished episode 3 last night. I'm absolutely. I'm having one of those dilemmas where I just can't commit to a 60-minute or 50-minute episode at the minute. I'm more into my 20 minutes. So I've just restarted Peep Show. If any of you watch it.
I love Peep Show.
To anyone listening, I think it's definitely worth watching. It's just kind of classic like British humour, but it's very unique as well. There's nothing else I can think like it. But it's like the British Odd Couple. Yeah, I think too.
But like more modern.
The camera scenes make things like so much funnier too. The way the camera's like a lot of the time from first person perspective, and like they do that like when there's like a kissing scene, it's like you're right up on the person's face and things like that. I just think that's hilarious. But I'm going to burn through that. Because I'm able to watch the 20-minute episodes no bother, but yeah, just it's wild commitment sitting down to a 50-minute episode is on at the minute. In terms of games, actually, I've just on the Black Friday sales there, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is the most recent one. I believe the new one, Mirage, was just announced there, but was down to £16, which is an absolute steal for that game. So I've been playing that, and a quick not a spoiler, but it is an influence on my next pick, which I'll be announcing shortly.
Spoiler.
But yeah, I've been playing a lot of that, and yeah, it's a fantastic game. It's I wouldn't say it's maybe I think the Assassin's Creed franchise has kind of gone more in the direction now of open world, kind of combat orientated, and I think this is like, if you've played Black Flag, it's not really about the assassin kind of thing, it's more about the pirate ship kind of stuff, which I thought on its own is a brilliant kind of game. I believe Ubisoft's actually working on one, which I'm excited for. Is called Skull and Bones, which is going to be, hopefully, because also they worked on Black Flag as well, we'll take a lot of the mechanics from that. But I think this is an absolutely amazing game in terms of like doing Viking raids and things like that. And I've just recently, I've watched it before, but I just recently finished rewatching a show on Netflix called Norseman, which is kind of like a comedy Viking show, but the story in it is actually quite good. But it's like also almost like it's like a spoofy show almost as well. There's kind of a lot of funny bits, and the accents in it are just ridiculous. But I would definitely recommend watching it if he's having. There's only 3 seasons, and I believe it has been cancelled. But I'm hopefully going to try and get the viewership up here by using this podcast.
What did you say it was called? Norseman?
It's hilarious. Like,
it's on Netflix. Yeah, that sounds like something I'd be really interested in.
I'll just even watch the wee, the Netflix intro clip that it always shows when you hover over it, and you'll just know exactly what kind of show it is. But no, it's brilliant. But yeah, that's kind of everything for me, I think.
Yeah, I'm watching like a lot of shows concurrently, so the way, like, this might shock some of our younger listeners, but we all hail from an era where TV was picked for you by the channel. You couldn't just pick what you wanted to watch. But I do something similar, like in a playlist where I have episode 1 of show A, episode 1 of show B, episode 1 of show C, and I order these so they play like the way they would have played on TV, kind of. So some of the shows I'm watching, House of the Dragon, I'm still watching. I'm on episode 5 of that and loving it. Andor, I'm on episode 5 of that. I'm on episode 5 of everything that I'm watching. But Andor is really excellent as well. It's getting better and better every episode. Yeah. And I'm actually really enjoying the Lord of the Rings show now that I'm at episode 5. I know a lot of people say it's slow, and I do agree with that. The show's very unfocused, but it's so well made, and I think it's such a beautiful show, and I really hope that it does get more seasons, because I think it can potentially be a great show. It can, as those storylines develop, but I think it has a lot of potential. One show that I'm not enjoying, but I'm watching out of stubbornness, is the 3rd season of Westworld. I cannot believe this the first season of Westworld, if anybody hasn't seen it, is one of the best seasons of television. But the third season is, oh my god, it's really bad. But I've heard that the fourth season recovers it a bit, so I'm going to plow through just so I can say I finished the show. And let me think, is there anything else? Oh,
I just think it's really funny thinking about you sitting there just arms crossed, really like pouty face watch. I feel like I hate this.
Yeah. Oh, another show that I'm watching, also on episode 5. I'm now on season 2 of Vikings, and I'm really enjoying that show as well. But I've heard that show gets worse as the seasons go on, but I will try and endure it as long as possible.
That's one I always mean to watch, but I never get around to it.
It's good. Like the first.
What's that on? Is that Netflix as well?
It's on Amazon Prime, but there's a new. It's actually, I think, a prequel to the show. Netflix must have bought the rights, so it's called Vikings Valhalla. So I've seen Vikings, but I haven't watched this new show yet. But yeah, I'm quite into the whole Viking Norse stuff at the minute, so yeah, I probably will get onto that soon.
Can I say something as well? Just a correction of last episode. I think I called one of the movies I recommend Everything Everywhere All the Time. I think the actual title is Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I just, in case that drove anybody crazy, I just want to say that I'm sorry about that. Greta wanted, my partner Greta wanted to watch that movie after we finished the episode. She listened to it because she's read The Humans as well, and she was interested to watch the movie then, and she agreed that it is bonkers, but we did not finish it because our child cried through the middle of it, so we had to pause it, and we will finish it later.
That happens, yeah.
Yeah.
I can I sympathise with you there, yeah.
Yeah. So we've watched half of it, and she has no clue what's going on, but I'm excited to finish it with her.
Any plugs that you just want to throw out there?
I've published a couple more little parts of my online serial, Shadow Sisters. I'll put the link in the show notes. And I'm working on a book as well in the background, because I realised that I haven't really talked about fantasy that I'm writing after writing Soulbonder, but I did start another fantasy book about a couple of months ago that I've got about 17 scenes. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it's kind of fantasy, kind of a mix of real world as well. But I don't want to say too much about it, because I think like a lot of the drive to write stories comes from wanting to communicate it. So I think like if you talk about a story, sometimes you take away some of that excitement. So I just wanted to say, yeah, I'm working on a fantasy novel that I want to try to get traditionally published instead of self-publishing it online.
Happy days. Look forward to that. Johnny, any plugs? I know you've a few things on the go, right?
Yeah, I'm still at the minute. I'm kind of learning game programming. We haven't started anything yet. That's why you haven't heard anything, Stephen. So don't be worrying about that.
It's okay. I don't have time anyway.
Though my housemate, he is quite musical, and he possibly get him to help with the music side of things as well. So we're kind of putting together a good team here, like with Michael writing the story, me and Stephen developing, and Daniel on the music. So yeah, it's
nice,
yeah, it's working well. But yeah, I'm still kind of learning the ropes at the minute. So yeah, that's kind of going to happen sometime in the future. Someday I will give an update that I have released something, but yeah, not anytime soon anyway.
Yeah. If we do have like more sections in this podcast, like listener mailbag and stuff, we should recruit Daniel to write us some theme songs for it, some transition music.
Listener mailbag. There.
Excellent.
I'm
going
to grab that there.
I am actually going to clip that out and use that statement. Unfortunately, we don't have any mail this week, so I cannot use it now, but in the future.
Good. Okay, so that's happy days, and we'll pass it over to Johnny then for the next pick.
Yeah. Okay. So I did give you. I'm sure Michael probably already knows what I'm about to say. He's definitely read this. We talked about it before. Stephen, you might have read this. Because yeah, I've been playing Valhalla, and I've been enjoying the Norse world at the minute. My book is called Norse Mythology by Neil Gaiman, and it's also narrated by Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, I have read this.
Yeah, I think Michael, you've read it. Steve,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've read it, but I guess we can't play the guessing game anyway. It's pretty obvious
Yeah,
what this is about.
I've not read it, yeah, but I've seen it advertised.
Yeah, well, just a very small summary. It's essentially just a collection of Neil Gaiman's what he considers like the best tales from Norse mythology. So it's just a collection of small short stories. But no, I love the stories in this book, and a lot of just like from the Greek world as well. A lot of our modern day culture and like things, even like words or phrases, things like that, come from like old stories like this.
Yeah, we would not have Lord of the Rings without these stories.
Yeah, a lot of like that's all been influenced by this. But yeah, no, I guess we'll talk more about it on the next episode. But yeah, no, it's a great book.
No, I'm looking forward to doing that one.
So it's like the classic Norse tales, right? But is it like dramatized, like Neil Gaiman sort of style? Is that?
Yes, I would say it's not like a typical history book. It's not like a series of dates or of things being thrown at you. It is written in a narrative style mostly.
Yeah.
Good, because I think when you told us about the book you were going to pick, you briefly mentioned, I think last week, that you're thinking about picking a history book, and I was kind of worried.
So I've since changed my mind.
Okay, what were we going to pick?
No, like I won't tell you the history book because I think that will be my next one. The only reason I choose this first is because I'm in the Norse mythology kind of era at the minute for myself, so that's why I've chosen it right now. But yeah, the history one will maybe come up my next pick.
I've actually listened to this book this year. I've actually been keeping track of how many books I've listened or read this year, and I've passed 53 now. And yeah, this book was one of them that I re-listened to. So yeah, this will be the third time.
You have to keep your number on 53 after you read this. Because you were
yeah, no, I know. I did that with Space Odyssey. I reread Space Odyssey twice this year, and I counted it as one. That still only counts as one.
Well, yeah, it's still but that's like 55 full book read throughs. Like that's a serious amount.
That's crazy. Like
yeah, my goal was like one a week, and I was 52 weeks in a year, so I'll aim for 52. And yeah, I'm pretty happy that I had that. There's people on Goodreads who read like, it's crazy, like 200 books a year. I don't know how they do that. They must do nothing but read. I can't fathom reading that much, but yeah, I'm happy enough.
Professional reviewers, Michael. That's all I do.
Yeah.
Okay, Johnny, do you want to do the outro? I think I did the last one, right?
I think we fought over who does the outro.
And who did it? Oh, that's right. Nobody did it then.
So we just kept it on, didn't we?
We'll do the same now.
Let's put on again.
No, I'll do it. I don't mind doing it.
Go for it.
Okay. Well, that's us for this episode of the Audiobook Club. Thanks for listening, and as always, send your reviews and recommendations to the Twitter, which is Johnny. Can you plug the Twitter real quick?
It'll be in the description. I think it's at Audiobook Club, something like that. But yeah, we'll put it all in the show notes.
Yeah, the email as well.
Yeah. So tweet us, email us, send it out into the void, and hopefully we'll find it. Mm-hmm. But again, thanks for listening, and enjoy the next read. Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.